You're building now a new software that will be used to analyze real-time data from an e-commerce platform. Marcella is the logistics manager. Every time someone buys a product on the e-commerce, her team will be notified to start working on the whole logistics process following a few business requirements. Paul is a customer success manager. Each successful purchase on the e-commerce will notify his team so he can send the welcome email to all new customers. Whereas Anna is the compliance manager. Once a purchase is completed, her team will be notified to analyze each individual user profile and check whether it's a fraud or not. Now, imagine that each company's area uses a different program that goes to the main database every second, searching for all new customers' purchase status and processing all business rules they might have. The most awaited event just arrived. Black Friday is here. However, your system is struggling to handle all purchases as it's receiving thousands of customers at the same time. Suddenly, the worst happened. As the number of users is increasing, as you have never seen before, you figure out that your database just stopped working and the e-commerce is offline. Now, what do you do, my friend? What happened? The database obviously has processing limits and many other systems trying to access and process his data at the same time would consume all DB's resources. Well, maybe the software architecture wasn't the best choice, right? What if we try using a different approach to support Black Friday events? Today, you're gonna build an event-driven application to show the observer pattern in practice. And I'll be working with you on solving the e-commerce problem I've just shown to you as I go to show Node.js events in practice. The problem we saw was that all companies' areas were building programs that were requesting the database and competing for the resources. Using the observer pattern, as soon as we have any purchase, all areas will receive a message with the purchase data. Instead of asking the DB for changes every time, when the DB has any change, it notifies all listeners. Now, those programs would wait for events and react to the data when it's ready. You can have as many areas attached as you want, and we free up our database to focus only on the purchase instead of third programs. This approach is highly used in microservice architectures. Application triggers events to event hubs, such as RabbitMQ or Redis, and other programs listen to those events and process them in independent units of processing. Notice that this use case was meant to show the observer design pattern. Speaking of databases, we could have many other ways to improve it, such as creating charting, replicas, and other subjects, but they are not the focus of this course, alright? You build a project that will have tests that cover 100% of your program using Jest, a complete JavaScript testing framework. Enough talking, right? So let's get started. All right, I'm here on the VS Code. So my Node.js version is the 18.7, so you should use the same version as me, all right? So let's create our project folder. So I will call e-commerce app, right? And then let's create a new Node.js project. Well, I'll be using here the ECMAScript modules. So we should write here, it's a module, all right? I'll create two folders. I'll call src and test, all right? Because we're gonna fill this project with tests. And also I'm gonna install Jest, all right? So Jest on the version 26. Why 26? Because if you see this project in the future, you can use it as well. And then I'm going to install Jest in the version 28, all right? Why 28? Because if something breaks in the future, this class will be still working for you, all right? Perfect. Now let's instantiate our Jest, all right? So Jest --init to create our configuration folder. So press yes here. Configuration for TypeScript, no. We're gonna use Node only. Covered reports, right? V8 in clear mux after all. All right. So now we have here our testing. But let's change it, right? So I'm gonna remove all these lines, all right? So I'm gonna press on Mac Shift and Command and L, all right? And then Command Shift and K. All right. Or you could just remove by hand as well, all right? Okay. Perfect. All right. What else we need here? Well, we're gonna set here the coverage reporters, all right? So what kind of reporters we want? We want text and the lcov to generating HTML, all right? And then I'm gonna set the coverage threshold as global, and it will be branch all 100%, all right? So functions 100%. What else? Lines 100%, and statements 100%. All right? Perfect. So let's add it to our package JSON. So we have there jest already, but let's create a file now just to check if our tests are working, right? If our environment is working fine. So from jest globals, I'm gonna get expect, describe, and test for now, okay? And then let's see if it's working. So test suit for observer button. Okay, so test will be like env test, all right? Just for now, just to check if everything is working fine. So expect true to be true, all right? Nice. Now let's check it out. I'm gonna run npm t. Ooh, and we see some errors there, right? So a non-coverage threshold, so it's misspelled. So here I'm just copy from there, threshold. And then it seems for ECMAScript modules, we should set something. So this is what they are talking to us here. Well, I did the research, so we should just add here option, all right? So I'll put here node env, node options equal experimental VM modules, all right? And then I will put here npx just to make sure they are trying to run jest for my local node modules, not the global one, all right? npm tr right, and ooh, it seems the environment is okay. If you are on the Windows, you should use the set here in a comma and then run, all right? But as I said, it's a requirement for you to run all these projects here on the Linux or even on a Git Bash or WSDL, all right? Perfect. Well, I'm gonna do the same thing here for coverage, all right? So I will press here, coverage. Let's see if there's any difference. npm run test cov. All right. I think it's actually, we don't need this one, right? Okay. So what else? Well, we can pass here a config to run in band. We should put this as well on the jest config, but that's fine. Okay. npm test. All right. We are all set. Well, let's start creating our structure for our project, right? So on the src will be all of our projects, all right? So will be, I'll put first the events here. and I'll put the payment, right? Just to simulate after our purchase. All right. Then I will put here observers, which will be the areas we want, right? So I'll put here, by example, marketing. And then I will put as well shipment, all right? To check if it's like logistics and something else. All right, so those areas, this is what we have. And we can put subjects. I'm just creating the structure here, and I'm gonna go through in the detail layer, right? So here, I will put the payment subject. Okay, and then in the RCRC, we put index.js. All right, so I'm gonna close them all. And let's go first to the events. All right, so as I said, we should monitor events here. So every time some event happens, we're gonna call a function. Actually, let's start by the subjects. So here we're gonna have the engine to notify everyone that is subscribed to our events. All right, so I'm gonna write export the full class payment subject. All right, and then I'll call observers, which will be the areas, right? So the areas that it's waiting for us to notify them. So we're gonna have some functions here, which is data, then unsubscribe, and then I'm gonna have the observable that I'm gonna go through later as well. And then I'm gonna have the subscribe as well, okay? This will be pretty straightforward. The subscribe will be what? The observers, all right? The areas we want to subscribe to our events. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add them to our list, okay? Add observable. And then to the subscribe will be observables.delete, all right? Observable. And then the notify. The notify will be actually when we go through this list, all right? And gonna go with for it. I'm gonna get the observer, and then I'm gonna call update data, all right? This function, we're gonna make sure that all observers, we're gonna have this function, okay? All right. So let's make an observer here. So export the full class marketing. Okay, so I'm gonna have update. Okay, and this update, we're gonna receive all the context that we have, which will be maybe the ID and the description. Okay, and then I'm gonna copy and paste for shipment. And the same idea, they're gonna receive the whole context here. All right, just making the whole structure work, okay? And let's see in the events, what kind of events we're gonna have here. So I'm gonna create the class as well. I will call payment. And then I'm gonna receive a subject. Okay, so this payment subject equals payment subject. All right, then I'm gonna have maybe an event for all credit card purchase. All right, so I'm gonna receive the payment data, and then we can have maybe console.log. I'm gonna put just a line break here. A payment occurred from payment data.description. Nice. And then we're gonna actually notify our subject. All right, so here will be the notify payment data. Okay, why? Because if we take a look at this subject that we have here, we have the notify here. All right, oops, So right here, we're gonna call the notify, and the notify will do actually notify all the observers that are waiting for this, all right? Perfect, we have almost everything set on our infrastructure. All right, we have almost everything set for structure right here. But actually, let's just put some console logs in each update so we can see the difference, okay? So in marketing, I'm gonna put a console.log and I'm gonna say this ID. Which event was this? This was marketing, all right? And marketing will actually send and welcome email to description, all right? So actually, description I think is not good because if you are talking about the user's data, I would say we're gonna need his name, right? So username. All right, but just to make sure you understood what I'm doing here, let's comment it so we won't get lost. Well, first of all, it's important to remember that the function update that we are just using here, right? This function update is responsible of handling his errors, all right, or exceptions. Here, this is also something important. As we are using update here, and on the subject, we are just going through every step here. Notice that we won't have any blocking state right here. So imagine that this function will return a promise. We're gonna handle the whole promise here. This is why I was referring to RabbitMQ and Redis, all right? So once we have an event, we're gonna process this event independently. We won't mix with the engine that is sending the events, all right? Perfect. So our payment, our subject won't have any await there or something that might block any execution. All right, so our subject is the engine to send data to all observers, right? All people or event that is waiting for events right here. All right, well, let's do the same thing to the shipment. All right, so here I'm gonna have the actually name. All right, and then is actually username or name? Well, username. Username here. And username there. And here will be shipment. And what should shipment do here? Well, the shipment will actually pack the user's order too. So you can imagine that all processing that the shipment area will do, we're gonna use this update function, all right? So we are delegating the responsibility to process the data. The responsibility is not actually searching, or the shipment won't have any access to the database. It's just receiving an event and processing it and just it, all right? But we're gonna see it in practice. I'm just creating the whole structure right now. All right. Payments, okay. Oh, instead of subject, I would say we should use payment subject because we could have a lot of other subjects, right? We could have more functions here, not just the credit card, all right? So it should be maybe credit card subject, but that's not the point, all right? So this is around this here. All right, so we should test this, right? We should see if we mix some syntax here, but All right, so let's start creating our test so we can see it working in practice. All right. All right, so let's implement our index.js and you can see everything working. Then we create our test, okay? So first of all, let's import the payment. So here we're gonna need JS and then marketing and then shipment and then payment subject. Perfect. We have them all. Don't forget to put here the .js. All right. So I'm gonna just run node on this src index just to check if there's any syntax error, but it's not. There's nothing broken here. I will create here now a script so we can run with npm start, and that's it for now. Okay. Well, if you had the same output as me, your code should be working, all right? If it's not, you should fix the problems first and then pause the video and continue, okay? All right, let's just instantiate our subject. Will be new payment subject, okay? And then we're gonna get all our areas. So marketing, okay, and then which one more would be shipment, right? New shipment. Perfect. So what our areas we're gonna do now? The areas should subscribe to the subject, right? Because the subject is the engine who is gonna send the events, and he's gonna be the controller in the middle of the everything. All right. So subject will subscribe to our marketing, which is observable, right? This subject will subscribe to the shipment, all right? Perfect. Now we are gonna keeping, every time we use subscribe, we are just adding these observables to a list, okay? Then when we call notify, we're gonna notify all our listeners. Oh, very nice. Now it makes sense, right? All right. Perfect. What else? Well, now we're gonna instantiate our payment. All right. And the payment needs a subject, right? So will be our payment subject. I just write subject here. And then we can perform our actions. So what is the kind of actions? Well, we could establish a payment. We're gonna use like the payment data here. We didn't establish here, right? So we could have ID, username. Why? Because we have used the same signature on the observers. All right, so I'm gonna use the same here. All right, and then I'm gonna notify back with username. But let's say we could have age as well, but we just notify with whatever we want. So we could have here and the payment happening right there. All right, I'm not using age just to show that you receive a data, but you can notify with only what you really need. All right, perfect. Well, let's go back to the index. And now the credit card, we're gonna receive ID, could be 1, and the username, Eric, and the age, 27. All right, perfect. What we're gonna see now if we run this code. Oh, so first of all, a payment occurred, right? So Eric just bought something using this credit card, and then see that all areas, the marketing area is now sending a package, the shipment is sending an order. So we could have a lot of other observers just waiting for this event to happen. Notice that I'm not using the Node.js events, the library, or the native module itself. I'm just showing how it's working behind the scenes, right? If you have no frameworks or even no JavaScript, you could implement the events as well. But notice that we could try using the Node.js native modules. So if I go Node here, we could have the event emitter require events, and we could get the class event emitter. All right, so we have everything we want here. So we could create our event, like imagine it should be a button. I will remove const here just in case I do some mistake. So button, new event emitter. All right, so we have an event here, and notice what we could have. If we put here button dot on is exactly the same thing of subscribing, right? So once I have a click, I will have my observer, right? My observer function will be like console.log a click. All right, but we could have other one, right? Imagine we could set other, right? Because here we are subscribing to two different observers, so we could have the same thing, two click. All right, but what if like a credit card or an action happens here? We could have our button dot emit, right? And what we do here, I will say our click happened. All right, when I click, we can see that all our observers were waiting for this event. All right, so the event here, the emit, we're gonna do exactly the same thing that our payment subject is doing on the notify function. Oh, very nice, isn't it? Well, to finish this class, let's just implement the tasks, so we're gonna be free to go further on this course. All right, just a last thing here. So let's go to our credit card. Let's try using something from our subject. So we have this unsubscribe as well. All right, what this means, if I unsubscribe, I don't want to listen anymore for any event. So I'm gonna say subject unsubscribe, and which observer? Well, maybe I'm gonna remove the marketing because we are spending too much money in sending emails to our customers. And now if a new payment happened, so I'm gonna call it as I did too, and maybe Wendell, and maybe 30. Now you're gonna see this will only trigger the shipment area. All right, so let's exit from here and let's run our npm start as well. So on the second moment, you could see here that the ID2 just triggered once. All right, so yeah, very nice. This is very similar to the remove listener from the browser and the Node.js events. All right, perfect. Let's go to our tasks and we are done. All right, what I like to do here is to write all the to-dos, what we should test. All right, I'm just writing tests here because we're gonna do everything by testing our code. So payment subject will be the first one, so notify observers. All right, what else? Well, the payment subject should not notify unsubscribed observers. All right, what else? Well, we could go now to the payment. So payment, let's look at the payment, right? Payment here, the only thing it should do is to call the notify from the subject, right? So payment should notify subject after a credit card transaction. This is very nice because we can reuse this a lot everywhere. What else? Well, now we could make like a test for the whole workflow, right? So all should notify subscribers after a credit card payment. That's all, I think. Let's save and let's run our test. All right, one passed because it's just the suite, but everything else is just on our to-do. All right, perfect. So let's start importing all of our modules, right? So the payment, just remember to put JS at the end. What else? Payment subject. Marketing. Then shipment. And that's all. All right. Perfect. So let's start doing our first. Let's see if it will check our coverage. Oh, that's nice. As we are importing now, it will actually try searching where are the lines that we should cover, right? And I think we could see on the index HTML where are the problems. So if we just move it from here to a browser, we could see what is not covered, right? So here, marketing, everything's not covered. Shipment, same thing, all right? So we're gonna cover them all. Perfect. On the first to do, we're gonna instantiate our subject with the payment subject. What else? Then I'm gonna create a mock function for our observer, right? So we're gonna use like a fake observer. So it must have an update function. Why? Because we can see all observers have just the function with the update, right? So the update, and then we're gonna import jest.fn. Why? Because we can actually monitor if this function were called. So data will be hello world. And then what I expect, oops, it should be inside it. All right, but I think, all right, the notify just receives data. So there's no problem at all for us to just use a string instead of the object, all right? Perfect. So when you are making text, you expect something. So count expected should be our data. And then we're gonna subject subscribe to our observer. All right. Then we're gonna notify them with the data, and all observers should be notified, right? So we expect what? We accept the observer.update to be called with what we expect. All right. If we test our code, we could see that one task is passing, all right? Nice, nice. And we're gonna see that the numbers here will change soon, all right? Perfect. What else? Well, I'm gonna copy the same test, and then we're gonna test the unsubscribe, right? So here, I'm gonna subscribe, and then I'm gonna unsubscribe the observer. Then I'm gonna call notify, and then we're gonna expect this to not have been called, all right? Because there's nothing to call from this function. All right, saved and run again. All right, 2 tests passed. Ooh, and the numbers are changing here. All right, for payment. Well, for payment will be a bit different. Right now, we're gonna have our subject from our payment subject. All right. And then we're gonna have the payment. which will be the event that got the subject. All right? Nice. Now, what I expect? Now I expect the function notify from our payment to call our function, right? Now I expect that the function from subject to be called after the transaction, right? So we're gonna use the Jest framework. So payment subject notifier spy will be Jest spy1 will be what? Will be subject notify dot name. All right, and then we pass what is the instance, so subject. All right, so I'm gonna use data here, will be username Eric ID 3, just to make it different, and then we can perform the action, so credit card with data, and then we make our assertions, so our payment notifier, right, to be called with data. Okay, so once we create our object, we just send our subject to the payment, and once the payment runs the credit card function, we actually should trigger the notify from the subject, and then this notify will have the data that we just passed to the credit card. All right, let's run it again. Oh, one task failed. Why just failed? Because we cannot spy a primitive value. I think this is the inverse. Yeah, the first one is the object, then is the method name. So I'm gonna try again. All right, 3 tasks passed. Oh, and we can see now our payment subject is 100% covered. Our payment is 100% covered, and we should keep only the other ones. All right, perfect. Once we know that our engine is working fine, we could have like an integration test or something like that. Well, first of all, let's instantiate our subject. All right, so payment subject, then our shipment, then our marketing, and then we can spy the update functions from both of them. All right, so const shipment spy will be just dot spy on, and then we're gonna have shipment, and then the shipment dot update dot name. All right, the name will return the string, and here I'm gonna do the same thing for marketing. All right, well, now what should we do? Now our subject will actually save our list, right? Shipment, and then marketing, and then we can instantiate our payment. All right, so const payment, new payment, then we pass our subject, and then we can have our data, so ID for username Mary. All right, we can make our transaction, then we can try seeing if everything's working fine. So, well, once we have a credit card, our whole project should work, right? Every function update from our observers should be called, and then let's see if it works. So expect shipment to be called. This actually should be shipment update, right? Update FN. I will add the same thing for below. All right, so FN spy to be called with data. All right, and then for the marketing area should be exactly the same thing. Ooh, let's see if it works. Well, I think if it works, we're gonna reach 100% code coverage. Oh my God, let's check it out. NPM test. Whoa, how nice is it, my friends? Look, all tests are passing right now, and we just covered all our functions. If we go back to the browser, we could go to the all files and we can see everything green. Oh, very nice. So just to summarize, well, we could have used the Node.js native events, but we didn't do so because I wanted to show you that the events in the Node.js just follows the same idea of the observer pattern. All right, so we did everything by hand here, not using the class, just to understand what's going on behind the scenes. Because when we're gonna work with Node.js streams, you're gonna see a lot of events happening, and you should fix this in mind. Once we have an event, we have listeners, we have observers waiting to be triggered once something happens. Okay? I'll leave some links here on the description so you can get to know more about this pattern. I think this class is essential to learn how web and Node.js streams work behind the scenes. They actually work by the same principle. They listen for events and notify data to all functions attached to it. Notice that I have only a single Node.js process processing data for all observers at the same time. And for our Black Friday scenario, we might end up with the same problem of too much stuff being processed from a single program. You'd go further by splitting it into different processes or even connecting event hubs to make them process data individually so that when a process from any area crashes, the others won't be affected. I'll go deeper on how you would do it in the next classes, but now you could have a grasp of what's coming and how we would free up our JavaScript applications to process even more with fewer resources. Don't forget to evaluate this class by clicking in the star below, and if you have any questions, use our comment sections or our Discord channel to discuss it with other students. I'm sure they would learn a lot from your questions and would love to chat with you. I hope this class has exceeded your expectations. I'm Eric Wendell, and I'll see you on the next module.